If you could trade your darkest fears for your greatest desires, would you do it? We all have shadows that follow us. We try to run from them, but what if someone offered to buy them from you? Before you say yes, ask yourself this question: what happens to a person who has no shadow at all? Story 12, The Shadow Merchant. In the city of Onyx, where the sun was always pale and the streets were always narrow, lived a man named Caspian. Caspian was a talented musician, but he was poor and unknown. He spent his nights playing his violin in the cold corners of the city, hoping for a single coin. His heart was heavy with the shadow of failure and the fear of being forgotten. One night, a stranger in a long, midnight coat approached him. The stranger was the shadow merchant. "You play beautifully, Caspian," the merchant whispered, "but your music is too heavy. It is weighed down by your sadness. Give me your shadow of failure, and I will give you the golden bow. You will be the most famous musician in the world." Caspian looked at his thin, dark shadow on the cobblestones. "Will it hurt?" "Not at all," the merchant smiled. "You will feel lighter than air." Caspian agreed. The merchant reached down and peeled the shadow off the ground as if it were a piece of silk. Suddenly, Caspian felt a rush of energy. He felt no fear, no doubt, and no sadness. He began to play, and the music was perfect. Within months, Caspian was performing for kings. He had everything he ever wanted: gold, fame, and a name that everyone knew. But then, the world began to change for Caspian. Because he had no shadow, he could no longer feel the warmth of the sun. It felt like cold light. He looked at a beautiful painting, but he felt no wonder. He saw a child crying, but he felt no pity. He realized that the merchant hadn't just taken his failure. He had taken his ability to feel anything deeply. His music, while perfect, became empty. It had no soul because it had no shadow. The people who once loved his music began to leave. "It is beautiful," they would say, "but it is cold. It doesn't move us anymore." Caspian realized that his shadow of failure was the very thing that gave his music its heart. It was his struggle that made his success meaningful. He searched for the shadow merchant for years, wandering through the narrow streets of Onyx. Finally, he found him in the same cold corner. "Take the golden bow back," Caspian cried. "Give me my shadow. I would rather be a failure who can feel than a king who is empty." The merchant laughed. "You cannot simply have it back, Caspian. A shadow that has been separated for too long becomes its own being." He pointed to the corner. There stood a dark, blurry figure playing a broken violin. It was Caspian's shadow. The music it played was haunting, sad, and incredibly beautiful. It was the music Caspian used to play. Caspian walked toward his shadow and embraced it. He didn't care about the gold or the fame anymore. As he touched the darkness, he felt a sharp, painful sting in his heart. He felt the weight of his sadness and the chill of the wind. He began to cry, and for the first time in years, he felt alive. He returned to the streets as a poor musician once again. His music wasn't perfect anymore, but whenever he played, people would stop and weep. They could feel his soul in every note, and they knew that he was a man who had walked through the dark and found his way back home. Just remember, your struggles and your failures are not burdens. They are the shadows that give shape to your light. Without the dark parts of your story, your music will never have a soul. Thanks for watching.